Thank you very much. As the slide says, my name is Mike Giepert. I'm the Executive Creative Director at WealthSimple. And I'd like to take you all with me back to 1990. Can you still hear me? I don't know if the mic's going to still work. But I'm sitting on the floor in the basement of the house where I grew up, and I'm looking up at one of those old school square TVs, the kind that you had to reach up and crank with your hand still to change the channel. And I've got a Nintendo controller in my hand, probably hogging Mario Brothers for my little brother behind me on the couch. And upstairs, I hear my parents yelling louder than I've ever heard them yell before. And they're arguing about money, which is something that we didn't have a whole lot of growing up. And they were struggling to make ends meet. And so they were trying to figure out if my mom could go back to school to become a nurse, which would mean that my dad would need to work an extra shift in order to help cover the tuition, which means that 8-year-old Mike and 6-year-old Matt would probably not get to see quite as much of them as we'd like. And looking back, I realized that was probably the first time that I ever worried about money. And that's as I look back on that experience, I can see just how emotional an experience money can be. And those are the types of experiences that I try to draw from as we come up with the advertising for WealthSimple. And we think that emotion can be a really, really powerful way to connect with an audience. So let me show you a little bit about what I'm talking about.
So what can you tell me about investments?
What can I tell you? I was hoping to be the other way around.
I just don't like talking about money that much. It's kind of boring.
Money was something that you weren't supposed to talk about. It was like day class A.
I think everyone worries about money.
What I do is I fret, but not enough to actually motivate me to action.
I don't want to get too drawn into the world of money in general, but not in a naive way where I'm like some rich person who can just be like, I don't want to deal with that.
I love hiding money around the house. I try to do that.
I don't really clip coupons or anything like that, but I could. If it's like a good coupon, I will clip it.
I knew that my dad had money in the stock market. That's sort of how I started to learn about finance. But when you watch your economy crash as you enter the workforce for the first time,
there was no money to save.
Every penny needs to be stretched as far as it can go.
If I don't save, I won't have that much money when I grow up.
It's extraordinarily complicated.
I think that's one of the inherent problems with money.
if people were talking more openly about money, it would be better. Right?
So as you can see, there's this incredibly wide range of emotions that are going on here. There might be fear about your financial future, some anxiety about whether or not you're doing enough, confusion about contradictory or baffling financial terms, maybe a little bit of humor. We think that great communication is designed to inspire emotion, and that's sort of the crux of what we try to do at WealthSimple. That's my job as their ad guy. For those of you who don't know, WealthSimple is an online automated investing provider. We are really, really good at simplifying the world's complex financial information. We use technology and algorithms to lower the cost of investing so that anyone can invest like the super rich. We don't try to beat the stock market. Rather, we just try and track the overall motion of the stock market for the long run for gradual, steady growth. We rebalance your portfolio, make it as tax efficient as possible. It's a time-tested, Nobel Prize-winning way of investing, and honestly, it's a little bit boring. And I say that as somebody who genuinely loves the product that we build and believes in what it can do for the world. But boring is sort of what you want when it comes to a financial advisor that's holding your entire life savings. Now, we don't believe that our communication also has to be boring and stodgy and filled with rich old guys talking about their dividends on the bow of a yacht. I'll share a little bit more of the content that we make at WealthSimple in a minute, but one thing that I hope you'll notice is that we try and talk to you in the most human way possible. Now, there's a strategic business reason for why we try to do that. One of the product offerings at WealthSimple is that no matter what level you've invested with us, whether it be £1 or $1 million, you have access to real professional financial advisors who can help you plan out your financial future. But from a communications perspective, the reason that we use humanity to talk with you is that we think that when you can tap into something as taboo as money is, something that has so much built-in fear and guilt and anxiety and hope, is that we think that we can start to get people, we can tap into something really special. We think we can start to get people talking openly about money. And when you aren't afraid to talk openly about money, that's when you can start to make better financial decisions. So we stand to be the brand that gets people talking openly about money. Yeah, let me show you a little bit about what I'm talking about.
Now that I've like squirreled away enough of my savings to have like a pile, I mean a small pile, I don't know what to do with it, and that freaks me out. Like I feel like I'm doing money wrong, and so that also adds to a certain level of anxiety, I think. I mean, cry me a river, right? Like I have a small pile.
For most parents, I know for my parents especially my father, you having money means you made it. You know what I mean? You having money means you made it, but I don't think we ever thought about when you have the money and there's no one there. You know, my mother was an educator, but she taught in inner city schools, and I lost her a year ago, and she is still one of the most important people in my life, and I will say that a big reason why I got into acting was because I wanted to spoil her so bad. Like I wanted to, what I call caking her, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to cake her out. Like I wanted her to have the best car, I wanted her to have the house we thought about. Like what I never accounted for was that I wouldn't have her when I got that. I make all the money, but the person I wanted to spend it on the most is no longer here. I know she's proud. I think the thing I have to do is be proud of myself, because she's not here for me to cake her.
You know, my parents were very careful with money and tried to teach me about how to use it, but they didn't really know what they were doing, you know? But if I had a friend who was like involved in that world of like finance, that would be ideal. Yeah. We could hang out and be friends, and at the tail end of the conversation, I'd be like, what's up with the money? And he would pull out his like folders, and we would do that for like 20 minutes.
I have children. Do you have children? I see whatever money I have as actually having more importance for them than for me. And I can't mess it up for them. I really don't want them to be left, you know, with nothing. It's a big deal for me.
I was raised by a single mother. She always said she stayed with my father longer than she wanted to, not because she didn't earn enough money, but because she didn't feel like she had ownership over her own finances. She really wanted to instill that I need to be independent, financially independent, and knowledgeable about my own finances so that I can always make decisions about my own life and I'm never tied to a partner in that way.
Just one or two more.
I eat pistachios. I'm addicted to pistachios. When the pistachios are really hard to open, I just don't bother with those anymore. I've noticed that about myself. I became sort of financially independent only when I was in my mid-30s. I was pretty much destitute before then, living with my parents for months at a time. In my 20s, I would not throw that pistachio away. I know that for a fact. Like I would struggle with that pistachio because there's nutritional energy there. Now it's not. There's no pistachio.
I don't necessarily think, I mean, yeah, there'd be lovely things I'd buy, there'd be places places I'd go, things I'd buy for my wife. I'm a pretty happy guy. So, would I change things in life? Yes, more money would be lovely. But I don't think it would necessarily make me an awful lot happier than I am. I like my lot in life. I love my wife, I love my kid, I love my mates. What more do you need?
WealthSimple has helped me feel like I am in control of my destiny. I kind of pictured like a Monopoly, monocled, top hat man that I would have to go seek out to tell me what to do with my money. And as an independent, entrepreneurial, strong female, I felt like there's got to be another way. I don't want to depend on that monocled man. I want to feel like I am able to control my money.
So I think you can see that we're not doing a whole lot in these commercials to talk about how we do tax loss harvesting and that our fees are a couple percentage points or tenths of a percentage point lower than our competitors. We're trying to connect with you first on a human level. We're trying to draw you in with emotion. And we think there will be plenty of time along the user's journey in finding out what we do to get more detailed into all of the reasons, all of the more practical reasons why they would want to choose us. So first we try to draw them in with humanity and emotion, and I think that's why we choose to do magazine stories like this. This was the guy who invented the most famous haircut in the world, the Rachel haircut for Jennifer Aniston on Friends, but he lost it all because of a crack addiction. We do stories about what it would be like living after taking a vow of poverty like this nun. Or a woman who is earning minimum wage, she's fighting to be able to raise minimum wage so that other people can afford to provide for their families. Or even well-known people like Anthony Bourdain, who you think has this entire empire of restaurants, and he's a major celebrity, but he didn't have a savings account until he was 44 years old. So we try to tell these real human stories with people. So one way that we try to connect with people is through humanity and emotion. Another thing that we try to do is become a part of people's culture. How many here have heard of the streetwear brand Supreme? Okay, good, that's a good amount. So arguably Supreme is one of the most influential brands in the world for a really specific audience. Thousands of kids line up every single week in order to buy this stuff. Basically, you slap a Supreme logo on something and it becomes instantly valuable. Things like the Supreme Dog Bowl, the Supreme Hammer, an air horn, and my personal favorite, the Supreme Brick. I kind of want one of those. And these kids line up every single Thursday. Thousands and thousands of these kids line up just to be able to buy this stuff. And you might think on one hand, okay, it's kind of silly. They're wasting their money on this stuff that just has a logo on it. But when you actually look at their economy, you see that these are actually really smart 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. They wait in line all day. They buy a bunch of Supreme stuff. They go home, and they sell it on eBay for a massive profit. So we thought that they were actually really smart people. And it's funny, you can't see our office here, but we're like right around the corner, our New York office where we do all of the creative work. We can look out the window and we can see this massive line of kids lining up. So we thought, okay, what if we do a message to them? They're already these really smart, financially savvy kids. What if we put a message out there and teach them how they could become investors? So we put up this billboard across the street. Cop, flip, invest, buy, sell, invest, and it drove them to our website where we did lots and lots of research and we found out exactly how long it would take and exactly what these kids would have to do in order to become millionaires by buying and selling Supreme. This is a simplified version of it, but we basically found that by buying and selling about 67 items per year, they could profit about $10,000, and if they were to invest that over the course of 30 years or 35 years, they could reach $1 million, just 10 more years, and they could hit $1.8 million. And what's interesting is that it brought us into a section of culture that normally is not ever going to talk about an online investing company. So streetwear blogs and sneaker blogs and fashion blogs picked us up and started talking about us. And one thing that we kind of loved about this, about a week after the billboard went up, somebody climbed up, graffitied over it. We think it was probably the guys at Supreme that did it. So it's really fun as a brand to put these little provocations out there. It not only for the sake of controversy, but I think for the sake of trying to get people talking about your brand. And any time that we can get people having a conversation about money in a new way, we think that we're going to make smarter investors, people that are going to pay attention to us. Now, we're really, really new to this. We've only been advertising for about 3 years now across the US, Canada, and in the UK now. So I don't in any way want to make it seem like we have all the answers. We're trying really hard to do new things with our brand, but sometimes we make mistakes. I showed you a handful of commercials that we did from the first round, but we made about 80 commercials in the last year, interviewing all real people, trying to get their financial life story, their points of view on money. And sometimes you put commercials out in the world and people don't really love them, and they tell you about it in a really public way. It's just really personal stuff. It was her nose ring. We didn't suggest that she put it in. We get more hate mail for her like nose ring, which I think she looks really cool. I mean, this is kind of fair. We feel a little cultish. This one's my favorite. Stupid, stupid, stupid. That's a triple stupid. So it's hard putting yourself out there, and you've got to be willing to make some mistakes and fail a little bit. But we think it's great to do as a brand. Like I said, not just for the sake of controversy. We think it's great the more that we can get people talking about money, new people talking about money that would not have had the conversation before. Those are new people that are going to learn more about finance and make better financial decisions. So when it comes to your money, we are always going to be safe and secure and boring and practical. But when it comes to the advertising that we make and the magazine stories that we tell and the experiments that we do with culture, that's where we're going to take bigger risks because we think that that's how you help to make a brand famous. That's it. Thank you. I can take some questions. Anyone? What's that? I mean, we put that up about a year ago, so I don't. If they're putting it in the market for the long term and letting it compound, I would guess that no millionaires yet. Yeah, it's funny. We got lots of new investors, but we also had our biggest influx of people between the ages of 15 and 17 that we'd ever had before, and our cutoff is 18. So we had a lot of people that were too young to invest with us. So hopefully we're planting the seed a little bit early, and maybe they'll come back to us in a couple years. Yeah. We're good?
Yeah, just one more question.
One more question? Sure.
Anybody have a question?
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.